Wendy Cowan with Next Home My Way in Orlando, Florida. I'm a realtor in Florida, and I consider myself an environmental activist. And we just wanted to talk today on World Oceans Day a little bit about what individuals can do in their own walks of life to, champion for whatever their causes are. I've always been in love with the ocean from a small child, and I believe that everyone has a voice, whether it's a big voice or a small voice. And I was inspired by Greta Sundberg, who is a young teenage activist out of Sweden who brought a lot of attention to climate change. And through her work, it just shows that people from all walks of life, all ages, all genders, whatever. She's an autistic young woman, and she has a powerful voice that brought attention to an issue. So I just wanted to talk with my friends about their connection to the ocean. And with it being World Ocean Day, we have a lot of other things going on in the world today, but one thing that ties us all together, in my opinion, is our planet and the ocean. And if we can't take care of that, we're doomed. So let's start there. But I wanted to ask some friends to join us today. My friend Anthony with National Association of Black Scuba Divers, which is a very well-established organization, and he's going to tell you about some great programs that they have and some of the super things that they're doing. And JJ Walcutt, who's a great friend of mine, and I'm going to let her tell you about her story herself, but she has a tremendous, her story is so big I can't even wrap my brain around it. But just recently she was running for the President of the United States and made it all the way to Iowa, if I'm not mistaken. But it was fascinating to watch you go through the campaign trail and to meet with people, everyday people that we know, our next door neighbors, and talking with them about real day-to-day issues. And one thing that engaged me with you is that you're very passionate about the environment and have a connection that I just learned today that you are also scuba certified.
Yeah.
Like, wow. So who knew that?
Outstanding.
You've got to be in the ocean to be able to experience all of it, and it's definitely adds to the vacations for sure, but certainly adds to your understanding and appreciation as well.
Yeah. So tell me about, how did you become a scuba diver? Was it just a vacation interest, or?
My husband basically said, well, nobody else will go with me, so you have to.
Oh, one of the
I'm always one for a challenge, but I truly underestimated how challenging it would be for anyone who isn't a scuba diver. The training is quite involved. You have to study textbook, you have to go through lectures, you have to go it's not just going into the ocean and trying on all the gear. You actually have to go down 100 feet, remove your mask, which doesn't sound all that compelling until you're down that far and realize you can't come up quickly. Your loss of control, your ability to manage your temperature, and then to get the mask back on and clear all the water out and see clearly and stay calm. It's challenging. I mean, and as you and I talked offline before we got on, you also see so many creatures that you read about, but you now are amongst, right? You are within their space, and that brings a reality to it. A little known fact, I sign fluently. My research and my PhD was with deaf children. And so I found as I went scuba diving that I would start signing, but nobody had any idea what I was saying until finally one day that I just put my hand up here and said, no, there were sharks everywhere. People got that one.
Yes, hand signals are very, very important. It's something that I personally want to improve on. So yeah, definitely. And that's yeah, we all know that.
Yeah, this one was understood. All the rest of my flailing was just a bunch of flailing to everyone. It's funny how you slip into another language in those moments, and yet nobody can understand or hear you, if you will.
Yeah. So what are some of the issues that you're seeing on a policy level that maybe you'd like people to be more aware of, to get engaged on from your position of being a former national candidate?
Yeah, so I think I should probably back up and explain my tour. I was a Human Innovation Fellow in the US government, and that allowed me to go through all 15 departments and the associated agencies. And I wrote a book called Innovating Government. And what we were trying to do was figure out what's working, what's not, and how do we kind of change the way that we work from a system perspective to be able to actually bring to the American people what it is that, quite frankly, we're all paying for, right? I mean, that's what our taxes are intended to do. And through that experience, I found something really interesting, which is both exciting and also incredibly concerning. And that is that a lot of people don't realize we have 2.4 million people working for the US government. And there are a huge number of great programs that nobody even knows exist. So their results of their work are not getting to most of us. They aren't even rising up to the administrations. There's just so much of it that we can't keep track. So I had this hypothesis, and I'm a scientist, so we work in hypotheses. If I could find that many good stories in the government, which is not exactly what I was expecting to find, my hunch was that if I went around the country, I would be able to find the same. And in fact, that's what we did. So in running for president, I went through all 50 states, and every month I focused on a key issue. So the first month was the environment. And we interviewed citizens, we interviewed people on the streets, we interviewed experts in all parts of environment, from plants to ocean to conservation, et cetera, et cetera. And it was amazing what we found. And it really boiled down to a couple of points. Number one, the research, because I did go through all of the science, both from the US as well as internationally, it's very clear. There is no debate to be had in at least the major areas. As you branch out, there's still some areas where we're having discussions, but the core of what the International Panel on Climate Change is saying is 100% agreed on around the world. And so, we have to take that with us and make good decisions based on that information. But the second piece that was really interesting was that all over the world, we have what we call NGOs, non-governmental organizations, that are mobilizing, that are raising money, that are raising awareness, that are inspiring and activating people to get involved and take care of our ocean and our climate and our land, our animals. And yet we're not organized, right? Within each of these groups, there's tremendous organization, right, but the connection across them is not as strong. And so that's why I love discussions like this, because we start to do that connecting, right? We start having conversation about what's happening, what's working, how do we replicate, and how do we connect? But the resources are there, the people resources, the financial resources, and the capabilities, technology, and interest all are present. We just need to do a better job of connecting them all.
Yeah, so some of the NGOs that I follow and I'm real excited about, I'd love to hear your perspective. Mission Blue is one of them, which is Sylvia Earle's organization. She is just like such a phenomenal woman. Just her accomplishments and at her age, she just still has as much life and fire and energy and passion for the oceans. It's just amazing. She's a very inspirational woman. Of course, Ocean Conservancy, or Nature Conservancy rather, is a phenomenal organization. And then Oceana, which you can see I'm wearing an Oceana shirt. I'd love to share with you the story how that kind of came about, but I'm a volunteer wave maker, is what the shirt says, with Oceana. So I'm here to make some waves for the environment. Good waves, good waves.
I like the double entendre on that one.
Exactly. So tell me a little bit more about, as far as when you're meeting with people on the ground, what were some of the things that you were hearing that they were concerned about? Because I know different parts of the country have different perceptions of what the real issues are. And of course, if you're more landlocked, you're less, in touch with the ocean and maybe have never even visited the ocean. What were you hearing as far as some of the primary concerns that people were having organically from their own perspective?
Yeah, I think it's the right question because too often we get focused just on what technically needs to occur. And we don't think about how different people in different parts of the world or with different backgrounds will take in that information. And you're right, when you get to a landlocked place and you're talking about the oceans, it's not that they don't understand, it's not that they don't appreciate, but it's not as tangible, right? I
Right.
mean, I grew up in Florida, and there were so many of my friends who had never been skiing before. They'd never seen snow. Their
Right.
understanding of what it would be like to be in 40 below, where everything in your body suddenly is frozen. It's not a concept they could sink their teeth into. It just didn't quite make sense. And so you find that as you move around the country as well. I think what's happened, which is really unfortunate, is that a fair amount of science and other elements as well has become politicized. And so there becomes this question of what is truth, what is accurate, what is data? Is it just statistics that have been skewed? Is money being spent in ways that is beneficial to everyone, or is it really just being used as a story? And people are not necessarily wrong in asking those questions. The difficulty that I find is that as scientists, I'm not sure we're doing the best job translating what the science says.
Right.
We publish in journal articles for other scientists.
Right.
We go and talk to other scientists. And so there's this huge disconnect between what the science says and what it is that we can actually do. And so that is really what I found tremendously common, was a misunderstanding of the data and a distrust of how it was being presented. But I didn't find, and this is actually true, I would say all the way to some of my off-camera discussions, I had the pleasure and opportunity to talk to some rather large companies who you would think would be very concerned about the costs that they would have to spend for the environment. And I did not find that at all.
Right.
Everybody was on board. So I think this comes down to messaging, clarity, and ensuring that information doesn't get politicized. We're just trying to help the ocean. It's simple.
One of the big concerns that I've had as, you know, don't want to go anywhere political, but as deregulation has occurred and the thought process is that we're reducing barriers to industry and making things more efficient. What are some of the repercussions that you're seeing now from some of that unleashing?
Yeah, I think there's two pieces of that, right? Part of it is just the reality that when we deregulate and people abuse those choices, then obviously we have very clear situations that cause problems, right? It could be that our oceans are moving up on our land, that we have water that isn't fresh, et cetera, et cetera. But what was interesting was why a lot of people wanted deregulation, or where the rub was between politics and companies. And what I found was really interesting. At one point I was in South Dakota and I was in this museum. I try to take on what the cities feel like and what the people are experiencing. And this is a city where a significant amount of their ancestry and the buildup of that area was from industrialization. And so everybody had a story of how their ancestors had brought this in, and that was a source of pride. And now suddenly we were telling them, you have to change it all, and we from Washington are going to tell you how to do it.
Right.
That was where so much of the rub came in. But nobody had a disagreement, at least not generally speaking, that changes need to occur. It's just that people in their own areas want to be community driven. That doesn't mean we can always do it. We definitely, there's always bad actors. But by and large, I think we can make changes.
How do we get more people engaged with the ocean and thinking about it and wanting to protect it and to engage on policy or caring about gill nets, which is a major issue with Oceania? Gill nets are basically these big, large nets that have hooks on them that kill indiscriminately. It kills everything. It kills turtles that are 50 years old. It kills whales, it kills dolphins, and it kills what it's supposed to catch. So there's a huge effort with Oceania to get rid of gill nets by retraining the fishermen in these local villages, giving them other skills so that they can earn a higher wage versus using this much cheaper way of fishing efficiently, but it's also killing a lot of very, sensitive marine life as well. So, that's one of the things. How do you help people get engaged with different programs like that, or how do we get them to care?
Yeah, I think you've nailed it, right? It's education, it's community involvement, and it's helping to find solutions that they may not be able to come up with on their own, right? So everywhere you go in the country, people are often willing to change, but if you don't help provide the information on how they need to do that, it just telling people you need to do something different is not enough. Just
Exactly.
telling, and even giving them a solution, but without a reason is not enough. I mean, this is basic psychology, right? You can tell somebody to change, but you've got to say why and you've got to say how. And if you're clear on those 2 points, we oftentimes will see a lot of change. I think there's one other area that we've not taken advantage of, and that's one of the things we do in Orlando, modeling and simulation. The reason that could be so powerful to people is because it makes the intangible tangible.
Right.
One of the things that I experienced, one of the most moving experiences I had was when I spent time in Alaska. I cannot believe how much is changing in their state. The rapidly changing climate and how it's affecting their water, how it's affecting their land, how it's affecting their food sources, and then the ripple effect into their schools, their industries, their family life, having to move villages. I mean, this is massive, and it's at a pace we're not seeing anywhere else in the country. It's real to them.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I have a passion for this and spent all this time studying it, it wasn't real to me until I got there.
Right.
So if we can help people get to a point where they can get into a virtual reality situation and they can really feel what it's like to scuba dive,
Right.
to be part of that ocean space, but also to recognize if you put this plastic here, this is what happens 10 years later with that plastic.
Right.
What is the storyline of that? Now multiply it by this many, and how does that affect? When people see that and get it, not just read it, then you see the motivation change.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that you mentioned, and I'm really excited about, is the education aspect of it and really engaging with our younger citizens and younger people to just have that awareness and appreciation and access to programs that can help them further their education. So I wanted to talk with Anthony a little bit about, and introduce you as well to Anthony, because this is the first time you're meeting him,
Yeah.
With National Association of Black Scuba Divers, which is hosting this call for us today. Anthony, can you tell us a little bit about the history of National Association of Black Scuba Divers and how that came about, and maybe a little bit about the education outreach program with the youth program?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Wendy. I appreciate you asking me to participate. I am the current president of the National Association of Black Scuba Divers. It's an organization that was founded in 1991. It initially started because there were people of color who dove, but did not realize that there were other people of color who dove. So someone did an article, I think in Ebony, that highlighted Black scuba divers. And once the divers read the article, they realized that there were other individuals like them that existed. They connected and then decided to form the National Association of Black Scuba Divers. So it was it has an organic origin out of necessity, I would imagine. And given the climate that we're in, and we'll stay away from politics just a little bit, but given the climate that we're in, it is amazing that it occurred, and there is a desire to sustain its energy and its enthusiasm. There are 16 clubs, I believe, scattered throughout the United States. There is a sister club in Mozambique that has also joined us as well. The focus of the organizations is really to stay connected through diving, through fellowship, through education, through conservation, through scientific research, and through diver training. So there's a tremendous focus to do that and to maintain the energy for that. As a subset of that, NABS has been active in its participation of a youth program. Unfortunately, the pandemic put our diving desires to rest, at least for now. But there was a plan to go to the Bahamas and to invite about 15 kids, I think, to participate in STEM-based research programs on the island. That there is a scientific base that's already set up. They have a program already established, and we were looking forward to introducing our kids not only to the aquatic environment, but to the STEM components of the aquatic environment as well. Personally, I'm actually now a course director, which means that I'm somebody who trains other people to become instructors. And so education has always been my passion. In my personal life, I am an emergency medicine physician. So I have been working in this wonderful new COVID-based environment for the last several months, which has been interesting and intriguing. And I have taught at the university level for several years as well. So teaching and education has always been a component of my life. Teaching kids, teaching adults, teaching people to appreciate not just the visual aspect of diving, but really the mental aspect of diving. Getting them to understand that diving is more of a thinking person's sport with regards to its planning, its execution, the safety, the awareness of other divers, communication. You guys had mentioned hand signals. I think there's a company, and I think they call it Sea Signs, that actually undergoes sign language training for underwater divers, which should be almost mandatory because it would really help improve communication in an environment where you can't speak. So I would certainly be an advocate for that. There is a lot to say underwater, and it's really difficult to say it, especially when there are sharks circling around. So the goals of the association this year have really been to keep people connected in an environment where diving is not available. As we continue to look at our goals, we look to increase the number of Black scuba instructors within the world, Black divers within the world, and really expose a segment of the community that did not know diving exists for people of color. Similar to JJ's mentioned that people in Florida had no idea what snow looked like. It is amazing how many of us have never seen the underwater environment, have never been exposed to anyone in the underwater environment, and really can't swim, which is a bigger issue. That's my safety officer is actually focused on that. He's a swimming instructor. And so we're actually going to go all the way back to the beginning and focus on teaching people how to swim and using that as a foundation to teach them how to scuba dive. Yeah. So that is kind of a synopsis of what we've been doing for the last 6 months.
That is fantastic. Amazing. Thank you for that. And thank you for your work as a first responder in the front lines with COVID. It's, again, we don't want to go into current events. You know, that's why we go to scuba diving, to get away from everything sometimes. And I would love for you to speak to that a little bit. We do have a psychologist on the line with us here today, but also I want you to speak from a medical professional aspect. What does the ocean do for people? There's a book called Blue Mind. Is that one that you've had the privilege to read yet?
I've not had the privilege to read that yet.
Amazing book, written by a psychologist, and it tells you our foundational connection to the ocean. But just from a ER doctor and someone who has a high stress job, what does diving do for you?
It's a little interesting because my perspective is almost always as an instructor. And so even when I'm in the water diving for fun, I'm still aware of my environment and aware of the people in my environment. Every now and again, I do get to dive purely for recreational purposes. No intent, no global awareness or anything like that, just the ability to have fun. To me, it's always been a refuge. It's a place to mentally unplug a little bit from the rest of the world. It is an appreciation for the fact that there is an ecosystem there that very few people have an opportunity to see and embrace and appreciate. Once you learn more about the behavior of the marine animals, then you start to appreciate it even more. That it's not just fish randomly swimming around, but it is an environment or an ecosystem that has purpose. So the fish are moving with purpose. They are hiding with purpose. They are hunting with purpose. And so I appreciate the fact that initially it seemed very random when I first started diving. Once I really got into diving and learned more about the marine life that was there, it became about understanding why they do what they do, and appreciating that there's a whole livelihood down there. It's from the octopus that's moving around, from the parrotfish that builds a little cocoon when it goes to sleep, to the giant crabs that hunt at night. It's pretty impressive.
That's super cool. So I'm going to ask everyone think about your best dive story, but I want to welcome to the group, we have Ryan joining us, and Ryan is a shark expert. He's also an educator and free diver, and does an amazing job with videography. Ryan, are you ready to jump on the call?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, how are you doing?
I am doing well. How are you?
Last time I saw you,
go.
I think I was leaning over the side of the boat throwing up. You know, we won't mention that to anyone. My friend Kim says to me, you know, it's not a good dive if Wendy is not leaning over the side of the boat. Has that ever happened to you on a boat?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually used to get seasick all the time. Being on a center console is more stable, but on traditional dive boats, I'd probably still get sick in 3 to 4 foot seas.
Okay. So I
Don't
can
feel bad.
relax on that a little bit.
Yeah, don't feel bad. You're not alone.
Well, it's great to see you. What have you been up to?
Just kind of hanging out. We got back to work a few weeks ago, as you know, and we're excited for pelagic season. The sharks are moving in for the warmer water off our deeper waters. So that's one of my favorite times of year, just kind of focusing on that and having fun with it.
Okay, so you're talking to pretty much an audience that has no idea what pelagic means. That might even sound, you know, something kind of nefarious. Tell us, what does pelagic mean, and
Yeah,
what's the season?
so in simple terms, it's of deep water, animals that exist in deeper water. So when we say pelagic, we're talking about much deeper than 100 feet. When we were there that day, we dropped, I think, in 150 to 170 feet of water.
Right.
And then we kind of drift out deeper and deeper, and that's where silky sharks, dusky sharks, bulls, sandbar, and then your pelagic fish, such as marlin, sailfish, mahi-mahi, wahoo, they're all out there. So super cool realm, so to speak. I call it the desert of the ocean. Anything kind of goes out there. And we had a leatherback sea turtle a week and a half ago out there. So, you know, anything goes out there.
Well, tell us about your background a little bit, and kind of how you got into, you know, your work with sharks today.
So I started as a scuba instructor, and it allowed me to lead group trips to some of the operations that existed at the time, and I kind of fell in love with shark diving. As I learned more about it, we kind of figured out that sharks were in peril. A number now that we toss around is 70 million sharks are still killed annually, and that's mainly for their fins. So that was kind of the motivator to kind of switch gears and go from teaching people how to dive to teaching people about sharks. And I used the platform that I had built, and I built my first company on it, which I think I talked to you all about. Didn't work out. The hurricanes, money, had to restart over. Into which, what's that?
A lot of people had to reset.
Absolutely. And then you came out on the newest operation. So that's where we're at. Just kind of had to reset after that, figure things out. And now I'm very interaction based. So even from the scuba background to the educator background to switching to shark diving in general, now it's snorkel free dive, and it's because of the interactions being better. We allow for better photography and videography by not having the bubbles and the noise that can scare some of these animals away. So that's where we're at now. We're learning a lot more year to year. We study migratory patterns, and when I talk about the pelagic sharks returning for summer with the warmer water, it's also with the food source, bonita. So that's kind of the things we study and try to figure out. And that is what we use to attract them, is the same exact animal that they're chasing off that ledge anyways. So that's the kind of things we've learned, and we're trying to learn more and hopefully gain more protection for them in the area. Because like we said, 70 million are killed annually.
Right. So how do we go from a perception of, oh my God, a shark, to I'm going out to go seek sharks and bait them to come and swim and interact with me? How do we make that leap? Because I remember when my friend Claire first, she jumped into scuba diving before I did. It was my goal from when I was a little kid, and it just never really happened until I got older, like many people. And I remember she was ahead of me, and she was like, "I'm going shark diving." I'm like, "I will never do that. You are insane." I'll get in, but shark diving, never. I was just like, "Claire, you're nuts," And as I got more involved and saw the nurse sharks, I'm like, okay, they were okay. They're like puppies, kind of weird, And then interacting with the reef sharks were my next ones, and then intentionally going out and seeking sharks on shark dives. My first was a whale shark excursion, which plankton happened to be down that day, so we only saw a juvenile. But I was fortunate enough to be involved in the sighting that was off of the coast of Jupiter.
Okay.
About that one about a year ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
We were on a dive.
It was mid-July because I had just got back from Isla Mujeres with the whale sharks, and that one was here literally less than a week after we got back from our Isla Mujeres trip.
Yeah, so all that news story that was all over the local news, that was us. We were
that is awesome.
For an hour and a half. Insane opportunity.
I saw that. That one was definitely didn't mind being interacted with at all.
Yeah.
It was a good question. I mean, the biggest thing that you have to do is just kind of look in the facts. 70 million sharks are killed annually, and 5 people on average are killed by sharks by accident. It's not the other A word, attack. We try not to use that one. And then the other A word is aggressive. So those are 2 words we try to get away from that the media has used to demonize them for years. Once we get away from those 2 words, a little bit of trust with your operation. You met our captains and marine biologists that work with me, and I specialize in behavior. So the team together creates an ultra safe situation for everybody. Oh, you still there? Okay. It creates a safe situation, and basically you just kind of stem them all together, like you said. Not the puppy phrase is one that we try to stay away from because we still want to respect them, and a lot of people, even in conservation, try to push the affection and puppy approach, and it's like, well, time out, step back, because they're still wild animals. So that's something that even we discuss on the regular, because as we've tried to change the perception, we've gone that far. And I was one of them for a while. We call them puppies, dogs. They're like dogs, but they're like a wild dog. It's more like it. They're like a wild dog, and they have instincts and whatnot. And that's what they're doing there. So going out with an operator that has been doing it and understands behavior, somebody you can trust, is definitely how you bridge the gap. And then when you're on that tour, you're going to learn more than you ever thought you could. That's what I would tell people. I think being there is number one. But even Shark Week in the last few years has taken a turn in the right direction, as a brand, in trying to push more factual information and less of the sensationalism. And I don't think they'll ever get away from the A words on Shark Week, but those are the kind of things that we can do, is just show people the truth, show people the statistics, and get them out with them. And then people like you, firsthand experiences are what we really need.
Have you seen I was queuing up the PSA that Yao Ming did for the shark fin soup.
Yep.
I want to play that. And also, did you have a video that you wanted to play as well?
I didn't have one available. I didn't have one ready. I didn't know I was supposed to, but I have.
No worries. Gotcha. Let me go ahead and cue this up. But I wanted to ask Anthony, when you're doing the youth education, how is it being presented about the sharks and what's happening with the shark finning?
That's a good question. I don't know if we have targeted a discussion specifically on shark finning. I know that we try to present a broad-based appreciation for the underwater environment. So in addition to exposure, protection, awareness, diving, instruction, safety, I know that a respect for the aquatic environment is a part of that educational process. I don't know if we've targeted shark finning specifically, but we certainly can.
So I'm going to play this commercial here, which is kind of cool. The host has disabled screen. Is that something you can turn on, Anthony?
Say that one more time.
It says host has disabled attendee.
Oh,
Is it possible to share the screen?
hang on.
Or I can just drop the link.
There should. It may be easier to drop the. Hold on.
Yeah, I could do that.
Okay, so now I made you the co-host. See if you can do it now.
Okay, let's see. Yeah, the button's there. Let me go to my iPhone. All right. You see it? Oops.
Looks like it's starting up.
Interesting. It's telling me I need to connect to the internet, which I'm already connected. That's strange. Anyway, let me not do that then. Didn't work. Technology, I love it. So the other thing I wanted to talk about with it being World Ocean Day, and we have a tremendous opportunity with the ocean to talk about ocean cleanup and some of the things that are happening with 4Ocean. What can you tell us about 4Ocean, Ryan, and some of the work that they're doing?
I know that they've branched out immensely since they first started. Where my first operation was, they actually had a boat locally in Lake Park. So I know they're here too, locally doing work. I know that they go out, they pick up trash, and all the bracelets and whatnot that they sell basically goes back into funding those operations. So kind of a good cycle that they have going. But I do know that they've got boats and operations running. As far as we've seen locally, we see them. So that's kind of cool that, you know, we do know they're doing work in the area.
That's amazing. It's an organization that literally they have boats that go around, pick up the trash, and then they use that trash to make these beaded bracelets, right?
Yep, and some of it, yeah, and then they use that, recycle it, and like I said, then they recycle the funds back into going to get more trash. So yeah, it's a really cool cycle that they've created to kind of clean up the local areas. Exactly, that's what I said. Yeah, it is, and it just kind of keeps going. So unfortunately, there's always going to be trash. It's a fact that the first piece of plastic ever made still has not disintegrated. That's how long plastic lasts. So unfortunately, it's always going to be there. So they've got something good going that motivates people as well. And it, as their name gets out, people start to learn about how they can help.
Right. And that's kind of what led to my connection, even just to meet you, was through that bracelet. I was invited to out on your boat by a mortgage broker, and he actually uses that as part of his marketing to ocean awareness. So he gives that to his clients, and now, you know, they have something and they can join the monthly membership and get a new bracelet every month, which cleans up more and more trash. So I was excited to hear about that and wanted to engage with them. So that's something that we wanted to offer to the kids that are participating in the program. Is we'd like to have a 4Ocean bracelet for each of them. So that's something that we can do.
Very cool.
Yeah. So JJ, tell us one of your cool diving stories, and we'll kind of wrap up here.
Oh goodness, my cool diving stories. Probably I'll go with the one with the sharks. It was one of those moments where we're getting as deep as we can, and it's getting colder and it's getting more gray. And I started to notice that they were circling, right? And so there was that question immediately: is this a place where we can trust, or is this a place where we panic and get the heck out of Dodge? But everybody assured me, no, stay your ground, you're fine. It's just normal behavior. I agree. I don't know that that we can go as far as puppies, but we definitely can see that. I think the point there is the interaction, right? It's the ability to recognize that they are living creatures that we can connect to, and that we don't need to just be immediately fearful of. We just need to be smart. and reasonable and respectful. And I will give a shout out because you brought it up, and I was actually going to bring it up as well. The Blue Mind and the idea of healing trauma and being able to be connected to the water, and the effect that has on the brain and the body. And too often, especially in our underprivileged neighborhoods, we don't spend as much time near the water. And so this actually came up in my travels, talking with the scientists, that they were putting a lot of money aside to try and invite people and give children an opportunity. But there was a fear, and there was a fear of being in the water. And yet we know how healing it is. And so the ocean is so wonderful and needs to be protected for the animals that live there, but we also benefit from that. And whether that's looking at it from a psychology perspective of health and wellness, to the ability to appreciate the view and the creatures that live there.
Yeah.
It matters tremendously.
Fantastic. I totally agree with you. I have so many friends that is their respite. That's the place that they go when everything gets too much. I'm going to the coastline, and they're missing half of the adventure because the rest of it is underwater, as much as we can, experience it and share it through, either through video, through doing great things like what Ryan's doing with his videography. What are some of the projects that you've worked on, Ryan?
Going back, one of the coolest ones I did was Surrounded by Nature. It was a Swedish one. They came over, and a lot of the people over there don't know much at all about sharks because Sweden isn't exactly a country that's surrounded by sharks. So that was really cool getting to work with them, because the guy who did it is actually part of Mission Blue with Sylvia Earle. So I got to learn a lot from him. I was part of Shark Water Extinction with Rob Stewart, who passed away during the filming of the movie. And I can be seen shortly in that, but I did all the Florida recon and all the preparation for him coming in to film. So that was pretty cool. I do a lot of private stuff. You asked about the video. I do have a YouTube channel. If you type in Ryan Walton Sharks, it pops up. I don't even know what the name is, but it's there. Just type in Ryan Walton Sharks and you'll get my videos there. And then Instagram is where I market a lot of my media, just so that everybody can see it. And that way it's not, it's a bigger platform. It's easier to get it out there. But I do photos and videos there, and I always post facts and inspiring shark quotes and stuff with that imagery to try and get people to kind of turn the page too and change their perception.
Okay. So when I was in the water with you last week, did you get anything of me?
Did I what?
Did you get any pictures or video of me?
I'd have to look. Honestly, I had a rough day Friday. We spun the prop off the boat Friday, so she's at the boat doctor right now for a couple days.
Oh,
So, but I did get a new iPad to do all my editing and everything. So if I have photos of you, they will turn up here in the next few days. So yeah, I had to kind of turn the focus this weekend to get some things sorted out. And but I'll check. I must. I'm pretty sure I do. We had a good shark day, so
yeah.
I gotta have something of you.
It was amazing because we went out there and the seas were like 2 to 4, and by the time we got out there, it was only 1 to 2.
It calmed down. I'm glad we went. It calmed down quite a bit. Yep.
I mean, I was very skeptical driving down because it was overcast and we were at the beginning of this tropical pattern. So
yeah, we were watching it closely and we're like, 2 to 4, but they were spaced out. And like you said, by the time we even got in the water, they spaced out where it was nice and enjoyable.
Okay. Well, I have been promised by Paul that we're going to go back and do Blue Heron Bridge and see some octopus, because that is my goal.
All right.
Like, I've got to see some octopus. Anthony, have you seen some octopus when you've been out diving?
Yes, ma'am. I have been fortunate to see several octopi, both in the Galapagos, Caymans, Cozumel, seen them in a night dive. It's impressive to see them move at night. It's very impressive to see them change color. And actually I have some video that I got from them somewhere. I got to find it. But they are quick.
Wow.
Very quick. Love them. Love them, love them, love them.
Yeah, amazing. I can't wait to see my first one. Do you have any cool octopus story, Ryan?
I've seen a bunch at the bridge. I've seen the common octopus and then what they call the Atlantic long arm octopus. There's two different species that live there. We've seen the Atlantic long arm octopus mating before, which is pretty cool. And then I've seen the common octopus in all sorts of different scenarios. You've got like cinder tubes down there on the east side of the bridge, and they'll be poking their heads out of those. Some of them do bury themselves, and you kind of think it's going to be a mantis shrimp coming out of the hole, and it's an octopus. But yeah, I can't recall like any specific one other than the mating long arm octopus. That was definitely more unique. But we see them quite regularly at the bridge. So pressure's on for Paul to not let you down because they're there.
So does it definitely have to be a night dive, or can it be? Okay.
Nah, just go slow. That's the biggest thing about going to the bridge is go slow. I'll come with you. Awesome. Take some pressure off Paul. Let's do that.
I'm excited. Well, I still have to steal that hat from you. I had my sights.
Oh, it is.
The very first thing I said to him, JJ, when we met was, I want your,
I want your hat.
Want your hat.
Give me that hat. Or, yeah,
I can't see it. What's on it?
It's a Kraken. It's a lighting company. I'll email them and tell them you need it.
I need that hat.
Cool.
I'll receive, right? So I put it out there. I would love one of those hats. But anyway, I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me and just sharing kind of your experiences and what World Ocean Day means to you. I think it's a big conversation. And, you know, I'm personally, how I want to affect the field is through awareness, through responsible development. In real estate, you know, making sure resorts that are going up have access to the latest technologies that can help prevent that sewage from making its way into the reef. We have technologies that can accomplish these things and have zero, basically 5% carbon footprint, you know, so almost pure, clean and renewable energy. And these resources are here, right here now today. And we have experts in all different facets of real estate that can put developers together with these solutions. And then from a, you know, dive perspective, helping to just share our experiences and our videos and our pictures and, you know, just the cool things that for folks that may not be, you know, wanting to dip their toes in the water, but just so they have that appreciation and understanding of why it's so important. Because without that connection, it's just another thing, you know?
Sure. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. That's awesome. I really appreciate you having me on for sure. I want to get you out on a calmer day. So maybe what we'll do is figure out when the tide will be good at the bridge, and we'll do both. We'll do sharks and the bridge in the same day. We'll just take the boat, avoid the sand and the people.
Yeah. And
enjoy the wildlife.
Join us, you know.
No, I was trying to raise my hand and see how I get invited to the party.
Bring them out. Bring everybody out.
Yeah, but we're going to post some links to connect folks with your great media that you do, Ryan, and also Anthony with a National Association of Black Scuba Divers and the outreach programs there. If anyone wants to, you know, donate to that cause, there is a STEM scholarship associated with that helps educate our young future leaders on, you know, either getting into biology or on the policy level, but helping to, you know, affect change on a global basis. So it's just a matter of each of us using our little voice to do something bigger, you know. Yeah.
Now, if I can give a shameless plug, I think it's really telling the backgrounds of the people that are even just here, right? I'm a psychologist, you're real estate, we have a physician, we have a diving expert, a shark expert, and every one of us has a hand in how we can help the ocean, and recognizing that there's this, not just an ecosystem of animals and humans, but there's an ecosystem of business and action and how we think. And so for anyone that's listening, one of my big mantras in politics is you're worth more than your vote. Don't care which side of the aisle you're on, get involved in your community and stand up for those positions in whatever your industry is. Because we each have something we can bring to the table. And as I talk to citizens all over the country, that was the #1 find, was community efforts. So I can't put stop it enough, because I think it's really important to It's not think outside the box, it's think about your talents and how you can contribute.
Yeah. So coming up, we have in July, we have a realtor event. That's a waterfront cleanup project. So I'll be posting about that, and anybody who would like to get involved on that level. And then we'll just keep folks updating on different things that we have going on. But at the end of the day, it's the goal is just raising awareness and what can we do to do better, you know?
Absolutely.
Thanks, Ryan.
All right. Thanks for having me, and I'll see you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, JJ.
Thanks, bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.